What's up everybody, welcome back. Be sure to smash that like button if you like these videos. It really helps this channel more than you know. Comment, I read all the comments and I love answering to you. And subscribe if you haven't already done so. Remember that new videos come out every Sunday morning, and thanks a lot for all your support. Today's video is going to be the last installment in the bunker series, and today we're going to go over adverse lies or bad lies when the lie in the bunker is not flat nor good. So we're going to cover how you can deal with these lies and you can apply that in your practice. We've already covered good lies. You can always go back and check out the other videos for that by clicking on the icon here in the corner, or by clicking the link in the description. You can see all of the other video series in the Wizard Golf Lessons playlist. Today specifically we're going to cover adverse lies when the lie in the bunker is not good, whether you're on a severe upslope or a downslope or a side slope, ball below your feet, ball above your feet, or if the ball is buried, what is known as a fried egg. So we're going to cover those specific situations. Those are the most common. Of course, it's impossible for me to cover all of the specific lies, but with that general knowledge, I think you can take that and then apply that to the nuances and the specific lie that you may encounter on the course. The first lie that we're going to discuss is going to be the buried lie or the fried egg lie. In this case, we cannot approach the shot the same way that we did when the lie is good or when the ball is sitting well. When the lie is buried or the ball is in a hole, it's well below the surface level of the sand, then we have to approach the shot in a different way. In this situation, we do not want to use the bounce of the club. Normally we do want to use the bounce of the club so it bounces off of the sand and then bounces up. But when the lie is buried, we're going to want to use the leading edge of the club so that we can dig it out. This is going to be how we get it out of the hole. If we try to use the bounce when the ball is buried, it's not going to be that easy to do because the ball is below the surface level of the sand and the club will bounce up and not be able to get under the ball. So we will have to engage the digging mode of our wedge by closing the club face down or having it square and then digging out the ball, literally letting the club dig into the sand and go under the ball. So the technique here is going to be to have the club face square or closed even slightly. The more closed it is, the more it's going to dig and you're going to put the leading edge in. And we also want to have a pretty steep angle of attack because we need the club to go downward, not across. We want the club to travel down into the dirt and under it. So we're going to hit a few shots here so you can see how the digging mode works. All right, so here I've simulated something what a fried egg might be. I've dug out a small little hole in the sand and I've put the ball down in that hole. So right here behind the ball, the level of the dirt is a little bit over halfway up on the ball. So the ball is definitely sitting down in that hole. In order for me to get that ball out of that hole, I must strike the sand behind the crater that it makes. So I have to hit it behind that crater, strike the sand there, and then dig it down and get it out. In this kind of a situation, I'm not thinking I want to get it close. Definitely when you have an adverse lie in the bunker, the object is just get it out of the bunker. Even if you just flub it up on the grass where you can then chip it and get it close to the hole, that's good. You just don't want to have to hit the bunker shot twice. So in this kind of a situation, my goals are just get it out of the bunker so that I can then hit a more solid shot, a more predictable shot, a pitch or a chip or even a putt, preferably a putt. But I'm really just thinking get it out of the bunker. Now, when the ball is buried like this and we're digging, because the club is going to be digging into the sand, we are going to have to use a quite aggressive swing because the club is going to stop in the dirt. It's not going to travel through it like it did before when we were using the bounce. It is definitely going to be traveling down into the ball, or sorry, down into the sand. So we're going to have to hit it quite hard, and we want to be traveling down into the dirt. So here, I'm going to show you, I'm going to close the club face up. And in this case, my stance is looking like this because I do want the forward shaft lean. I need this thing traveling downward into the dirt. I'm not going to be able to travel down into the dirt if the shaft lean is vertical, because then I told you it goes upwards, not downwards. So in this case, when I need the club to go down, I will be playing it somewhat further back in my stance, maybe in the middle of my stance, depending on what the slope is. Here on this particular slope, the ball is slightly above my feet. So I'm going to grip it a little bit shorter, but I'm definitely playing it Probably, you know, I'm playing it in middle back of my stance so I can have the shaft forward, so I know that this club is going to be traveling downward through impact. I'm trying to strike the ball behind the crater. I can strike it well behind the ball because it's going to be digging down, so I focus my attention about an inch behind where the hole starts, behind where this crater starts. I'm focusing my attention about right here, so I can strike the ball there and go down, and hopefully it'll blast it out over this lip and then onto the green. That's the goal. Again, I told you, we take a few waggles, we focus on where we want to hit the ground, and then we go down into the ball, and we get it out. Now that wasn't a great shot, but it's out of this hole, it's onto the green, and I have a putt left. That's the goal. This is such a compromised lie that you can't really think that you're trying to get it close from such a lie. So I'll show you that again. We'll cover this up. This time I'll just step on the ball and put it in the dirt. So now you see the ball is well buried in the sand. There's no way I can blast it out. I'm gonna have to dig out from under it. So same principle. I'm gonna go down and focus on the ground behind the ball and dig that ball out. It's not gonna come out with a lot of spin. Very times it's just gonna be knuckled and it's gonna come out in that fashion. So you prepare for the ball to roll out. It's not gonna have backspin. You really, again, you're just trying to dig it out and blast the ball out of the sound by digging downward. I'll show you that one more time. Here, this time I'll just put it in this divot. So here, this is a little bit of a different situation. Still, I want to dig it out, but this time I don't want to strike because the beginning of the divot starts here, which is about 5 inches behind the ball. And I really don't want to strike the ball that far behind the ball. You really want to limit how far behind the ball you strike it to about this distance, which is about, you know, maybe your hand width, maybe a little bit slightly more than that. But you definitely don't want to start hitting the ball that far behind the ball because then it's very hard to keep the club's momentum through the dirt hitting it. It will stop too early and it will flub it. So in this case, because the divot here is kind of shallow, I'm just going to hit it at the beginning of the divot, not where the divot starts, but I'm going to hit it just after that and still dig it out of here, just a couple of inches behind the ball, and I'm still going to dig it out of this hole. See, I lobbed it just over that lip there, and then it would roll to the hole. We got it out of the bunker. That's the goal. When you have a compromised lie like this, again, the goal is just to get it out of the bunker. You can do that by engaging the dig mode of your club and hitting down on it, having a steep angle of attack, and letting the club dig into the ground. This is also applicable when oftentimes you know that people don't rake the bunker. And let's say that there is a mound of dirt or a hill behind your ball where it's behind the ball like this. Again, I want to strike that mound of dirt in a downward fashion. So here we're going to put some dirt behind the ball. So my ball is in front of this little mound of dirt, so I cannot just hit through the dirt and bounce it out. Now I have to dig through the dirt, and I'm going to hit downward into the ball. In this situation, this is one of the rare situations in golf where you can actually have the club face slightly closed to the target, because that's going to really engage the dig mode and negate the bounce so that the club definitely goes down. So in this case, sometimes I'll even have the club slightly closed to square, and if because of that it's going to go slightly left, and I'm coming steeply into the ball. So I'm going to have definitely the club face closed to make sure that I'm going to be in the dig mode of the wedge, and I'm going to strike down on it just behind the ball. I'm focusing on where I want to hit the dirt. That is right in the middle of this mound right here, and we'll blast it out of this hole also, or in this situation. Notice how hard I'm hitting that dirt, how aggressively I'm swinging. I'm not swinging very far, but I am accelerating down through the shot into the dirt, hitting the dirt very hard to have enough energy to blast the ball out of that situation. So that's going to be how you handle buried lies when the ball is down, sitting in a hole, and you can no longer bounce it out. You engage the dig of the club, you close the club face down or have it square, have the hands in front, have the forward shaft lean, steep angle of attack, and very aggressively hit down into the ball to get it out. Down into the dirt, rather. We do not want to hit the ball, we want to hit behind the ball. All those shots you saw me hit there, I hit with my 56-degree sand wedge. It's actually bent to 55. It has 8 degrees of bounce, and you saw that it was plenty to get that ball, or those 4 balls there, those 4 different shots, out of the bunker and onto the green. Now we're going to talk about the situation when we have the ball above our feet. All the other shots we're going to hit now are going to be from good lies, but very often you may encounter a combination of these things that I'm going to show you. You may have a side slope or an uphill slope in addition to a buried lie, and then you're going to have to use these concepts in conjunction together so that you can get the desired result. You may have to, if the ball is buried and on an upslope, then you'll have to apply both of these techniques simultaneously. Okay, so keep this in mind. But from now on, we're just going to use good lies so I can show you the rest of the techniques used. Essentially, we have 2 modes out of the bunker. We've got dig mode and bounce mode. So you determine which mode you're going to use and then adjust for the slope or the lie. If the lie is good, we use bounce mode. If the lie is in a hole or buried, we'll use dig mode. That's pretty much it. So here I have a good lie, but notice that the ball is above my feet. It's quite a good distance above my feet, maybe 5 inches or so. So the ball is much closer to me this way. This is a case, and I mentioned to you in the last video, or maybe the first video of the bunker series, that I generally don't like to dig into the sand. This is a case where I certainly do not want to dig into the sand, because if I dig into the sand now, I'm going to put my feet even lower into the dirt, so the differential of the level of the ball is going to increase. The ball is going to be even higher above my feet. Ideally, I want it level. That's going to be pretty close, or maybe slightly above my feet. But I definitely don't want to sink my feet further down than they already are. In this case, where the ball is closer to me, I'm going to have to choke the club up some, or choke it down. I'm going to have to hold it shorter. I definitely don't want to hold it full length, because then I may hit the ground way too far behind the ball. I judge how much club I need. I just kind of get a measurement here, and I know that this is where I am, so I can adjust my spine angle and use my legs to get the club where I need and get the amount of length that I need for this particular shot. But normally, when the ball is closer to you, you want to choke the club down, make it shorter so that you won't hit the ball too far or hit the ground too far behind the ball. So in this case, I'm choking it down a little bit. I'm going to lower my hands, and we use a technique that we saw in the first 2 videos and get this ball out of here. Ball's above your feet. Just choke the club down a little bit, make it shorter so that you don't hit too far behind the ball. Now we'll hit a shot where we're on an upslope. So let's say my ball settles here in the bunker. Also note that they watered this green earlier today, so this sand is kind of wet. I think you can see that it's kind of heavy. When you're hitting in wet sand conditions, the sand is going to be heavier, it's going to be thicker, more compact, so you're going to need generally more power to get it out of the sand. So on the upslope, these are usually some of the easier bunker shots to hit, because it helps us, because we're on this level already, we can get the ball lofted out some. When you're on an upslope, the ball is generally going to take off higher, because we're already standing like this, so we're swinging kind of up, we're adding loft to the club, so it tends to send the ball a little bit higher. So these are generally the easier shots to hit, and because you're on the upslope of the bunker, that usually means you're in the front of it or the closest part of the bunker to the green, so we don't really have to hit it that hard to get it out of the bunker. I just need to at least fly it to here to get it out of the bunker. So this is much easier than, say, having to hit it from the back of the bunker, where I have to fly at a much farther distance to get it out of the bunker. So these are generally the more easier bunker shots to hit. When I'm standing in the front of the bunker, oftentimes I will like to dig my front foot in some, because I'm trying to get a little bit flatter. Maybe the back foot not so much, but the front foot I'll dig in so that I can now stand flatter. And so I'll dig my front foot in so my front foot is not so high anymore. So I'll dig it in some so I'm a little bit flat, and then this shot becomes a lot easier. I will use a similar technique On the upslope, sometimes because the ball will come up a little bit higher, sometimes I don't engage the bounce completely where the club face is completely flat. Maybe I'll just use a little bit of bounce and have the club face only slightly open. Depends on the severity of the bunker shot you're hitting. Sometimes when I'm on very severe slopes, when I'm having to stand like this, then I just dig the ball out using the dig mode and hit into the sand to blast it upwards, because if I were to have and try to bounce it out, it would go straight up or maybe not go forward as far. But in this case, it's not too much of an upslope, it's only a slight upslope. So just by digging my front foot in, down some, now my stance is a lot more level. And now I can take my normal stance into the ball and we'll blast this one out of here. So to handle uphill slopes, usually you want to dig your front foot in so that you can level your stance out some. Choose the length of the club that you're going to use for that shot by gauging how far away you need it to be, where you're going to strike the sand behind the ball. And you may need to play the ball slightly more forward in your stance. So now we'll talk about a downhill slope. You've hit it in the front of the bunker going this way. So now the slope is like this, it's a downhill lie. These are some of the more difficult shots to hit out of the bunker. When you're hitting a downhill shot, because you're wanting to work with the slope this way, sometimes you have to use more loft. Now, when you're hitting shots on any slope, you generally want to try to position your body such that you're working with the slope. So if I were on an uphill slope, I would want to position my body like this, so I'm swinging with the slope. On a downhill slope, I want to position my body this way, so I'm swinging with the slope. That means that a lot more weight is going to be on my front foot. I'm going to be working downward so that I'm working with the slope like this. My body, I'm trying to keep my body essentially perpendicular with the slope. So the slope of the ground is like this. I want to keep my body like that. If it's a downhill slope, I want to keep my body like this. I don't want my body to be standing across the slope because that's going to make it harder for me to hit downward into it or get the club to travel with the slope. So that uphill lie, you want to stand a bit like this. So on this lie, I'm going to stand a little bit downward because I want to travel down with the slope. If I were to stand straight up, it's going to be very hard for me to hit the ground behind the ball. I will likely hit it much behind the ball because the ground behind the ball is higher. It's easier to hit the spot that I want and hit downward on it if I'm at this angle so that I'm working this way. Now, that being said, because we're shifted forward some, that means the loft of the club is going to be less and the ball will generally take off a little bit lower than expected. So this is a case where you may need to use a higher lofted club. If you like using your 50 degree or your gap wedge out of the sand, maybe in this situation you would want to use a sand wedge to make sure that you have plenty of loft to get it out. If you're using a sand wedge, maybe you would want to use a lob wedge to have plenty of loft, depending on the severity of the slope. In this case, it's not too severe. I'm just going to use my sand wedge, but I'm going to open it well up so I have lots of bounce. Keep in mind that I need to hit it hard enough to fly it over the lip of that bunker to get it onto the green. So in this case, I'm going to go forward some. I'm going to be leaning forward, standing as perpendicular to the slope as I can. And I'm going to be traveling. We're going to use the same technique that I was showing you before. So I'm going to stand with the slope, decide what I'm going to do. Typically in this situation, because the ground is a little bit higher behind the ball, you're going to tend to hit the ground before the ball, so you need to play the ball slightly back of where you want, slightly back of normal. So where I would normally play bunker shots in the front like this, I can't really get on this ball playing it this far forward because I would likely hit the ground about here. I need to hit the ground about there. So I need to play it a little bit further back. So we're going to blast this one out of the bunker here. Engage the bounce, decide, pick my target. See how much lower that came out of the ground, or lower out of that bunker. Even though I had the club face way open, the way that it came out was very low. On these downhill lies, they will come out kind of low. What you don't want to do in that situation is dig the right foot in. the same way I did on the front of the bunker where I dug my left foot in. In that situation, the slope wasn't so severe that I could dig my left foot in to balance my stance out. In the back of the bunker, I don't want to do that because I told you we want to kind of stand with the slope. Sometimes that's true in the front of the bunker as well. It depends on the situation. You have to decide and practice to determine what technique and how you're going to approach the shot. The only real way to determine that is to hit various shots, practice these different situations so you understand how the club reacts in the sand, how changing your body posture and your weight distribution affects your angle of attack, and how you approach that shot and how the ball comes off. Last but not least, we'll discuss the situation in the bunker where the ball is below your feet. Your feet are above the ball. We'll hit a ball in this situation here. So now when I approach this shot, the ball is quite a bit below my feet, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 inches. So I have to adjust for this type of shot. Converse to the ball above my feet where I choke the club down. In this situation, because the ball is below me, further away from me, I need to use more club. So I will grab more of the club to make sure that I have enough to hit the ball. Now, if you're accustomed to gripping the club on the end of the club, then that means you may have to get closer to the ball so that you can hit it down enough to get on it. Remember that it's helpful in bunker shots to have the hands low so we can engage the bounce. So here, see, if I were to grab the club very short, like I like to do, right at the bottom of the grip, you can see that there's no way that I can get down low enough without doing something like this to get down on the ball, and that's just not going to be conducive to a good swing. I want to have relatively good posture. In this situation, I maybe want to dive down a little bit more so that I can get onto the ball, but I need to get more club. So as I'm sitting here getting in the posture that I want for this particular shot, I eye up my alignment. In this situation, it also may be helpful to dig your feet in, because now when you dig your feet in, you're going to get your feet closer to the level of the ball. This is a situation where digging your feet in is going to be helpful because now I can get my feet closer to the level of the ball, so I'm not nearly as above it. So here I've dug my feet in some. Now my stance is a lot closer to the level of the ball, so this is going to make it even easier for me to hit it. I'm still going to want to use a little bit longer of my grip, and we apply the same techniques that we've talked about before. I think this is going to work all right. I pick my target where I want to hit the dirt behind the ball. I engage the bounce, lower my hands, and we blast it out. So this is a situation when the ball is below your feet where it is helpful to bring your feet down so that you can level yourself out with the ball. I hope you guys are really enjoying this series. I know I am enjoying it. I enjoy sharing my knowledge with you that I've acquired over many, many years, and hundreds or thousands of hours of practice and going through these motions. And it's nice to have this platform of YouTube to share this information with you. So I appreciate all of your support, all the likes that you put on there, all of my subscribers. Thanks a whole lot. And I also have good news for you. Before that, remember, you can always check out 2 videos here, subscribe here. And I've decided that now that we've finished most greenside shots, you have lots of information to think about and to implement and to practice to improve your scoring. Greenside shots, everything from pitching to chipping to putting that we've already been over, and bunker play will now enable you to get the ball close to the hole and then put it into the hole, scoring in golf. So now I've decided what everybody wants to see is the driver. So stay tuned, because next week we're going to go straight to the big dog and I'm going to show you how to rip it. See you next time.